Hey there guys, Harry Cricket 3 here and welcome to my 2025-2026 Premier League predictions. So as always, we are going to be going from 20th place all the way to first, predicting where each team finishes, talking about the signings they've made, any key players they've let go, how I think their manager will fare with their tactics. After listing each team, I'm going to be going through various awards such as top scorer, most assists, player of the season, young player of the season, best signing and first sacking. But without further ado, let's get into it. So starting off in 20th position this year, I've gone for newly promoted Burnley. Now, Burnley were really good defensively in the Championship last year. Scott Parker had them working exceptionally hard as a system, not just the defensive back four, their system in general was very strong. But they've lost a key player in that system in James Trafford, the goalkeeper with an unbelievable amount of saves last year in the Championship. He's now gone to Man City, and it looks like he will be Man City's first team keeper. They replaced him with Martin Dubravka, who I think is probably the best signing they could have made for that position. They brought in Kyle Walker as well. They've also lost a key player in Josh Brownhill in midfield, who's been there for very many years for them. Now, the biggest reason I think they won't stay up is their attack. It's a little bit disappointing. They haven't really got any star players. Bringing in Marcus Edwards from Sporting, I think is an amazing purchase. But can he do it to keep a newly promoted team up? That's totally different to playing for one of the best teams in Portugal. And the other reason is Scott Parker himself. He has been promoted with Fulham, Bournemouth, and now Burnley. And on the previous two occasions, it wasn't really a happy ending. He's shown he's a very good manager in the Championship at getting teams promoted, making teams hard to beat. But can he change it to the Premier League? He needs to evolve his own tactics here. I think he can, but I don't think this is the year. I just think they've sold too many key players. They haven't brought any key ones in. They've made the squad ready for the Championship again to get back up. But we don't want 3 up, 3 down every year. But unfortunately, Burnley, I think it's not going to be your year. You're going to be going down. Now, in 19th place, I've gone for another newly promoted team in Sunderland. Now, Sunderland have caught everyone's eyes in the transfer market buying so many good players. Granit Xhaka has come from Bayer Leverkusen, which is an amazing purchase when you think about a team in the mid-table could have got him, but Sunderland managed to get him. Simon Adingra from Brighton is another good purchase, as well as Diarra from Ligue 1 and Margui on loan from Chelsea. So they've clearly tried to strengthen their squad. They clearly have gone for it and said, right, this is our chance to stay in the Premier League. Let's go for it as hard as we can. But to be honest, I just don't think their team or their manager is quite ready yet. Their squad probably didn't deserve to get promoted in the first place. I think Sheffield United were a lot better in the whole season, and they probably should have won that game. They just bottled it in the end. And typically when that situation happens, the team that ends up coming up never really settle in well. We will see the Tyne-Wear derby again, but I'm just a little concerned about the depth of their players. They're going to lose a lot of players during the African Cup of Nations as well. I think you need to make the Stadium Lights a fortress this season, which I think will make it hard, but I don't think it'll be a fortress. I think teams will beat you. I'm going to go 19. Okay, so the final relegated spot, will it be 3 teams up, 3 teams down again for the third season in a row? I'm going to say not. I've gone for Wolves. Now, Wolves in the last few years have been mixing around the relegation candidates, but staying up pretty much every year. Last year, they started really poorly under Gary O'Neill. But when they brought in Vitor Pereira, they became a really outstanding unit. And they ended the season really well, actually. And usually, that's a sign that the team's going to do quite well in the next season. However, they have sold Matej Cunha and they've sold Reyan Nouri. They are probably the 2 worst players for them to sell in the summer. As well as that, they've lost Craig Dawson, they've lost Sarabia, they've lost Semedo, they've lost Guedes. It's not been the best window for Wolves at all. In terms of signings, they haven't really brought many players in. They've managed to keep hold of Strand Larsen, which I think is huge. When you've got a striker who could score you 14 Premier League goals, which really went under the radar last season, you need to capitalise on that. If Wolves can keep getting him the ball and tell him, can you at least score us 10 this year, Wolves will be fine. I'm just a little bit concerned. I think there's too many losses in the squad. There hasn't been many additions. When that does happen and you've been mixing around the relegation for too many years, eventually you can drop. The only thing for Wolves is the gap between the bottom of the Premier League and the top of the Championship has been quite big in the last few years. And that probably means they will stay up. But first of all, I don't want 3 teams up, 3 teams down again. So that's also why I've kind of predicted it. But at the same time, I think Wolves have just sold too many key players. I also think Vitor Pereira is a really good manager. I think he might get a job somewhere else. And I think he might be tempted if a big team in Germany or France or Spain came in for him. He probably would take it because I think he'd rather do that than float around relegation with Wolves. The starting 11 is good. I'm just concerned about their depth and their ways to make draws into wins this year, which they had last year with Cunha and with Sarabia. They don't have that anymore. And I think they need to find someone to solve that. I don't think they can. Now, this means I predicted Leeds United to stay up in the division this year. They are managed by Daniel Farga, who has come up with Norwich before and got relegated on both occasions. Yes, he is known to be a very good Championship manager, but not very good Premier League one. But I think Leeds will do something magical and find someone who can keep the squad in the league, because I think their squad could stay in the league here. If you look at their squad on paper compared to the Wolves squad, it's not that much worse. I think their starting 11's worse for sure. But if you look at the depth they have, it's really not that bad. They brought in Jack Harrison again, which I think is a really key purchase here. So you got Jack Harrison and Wilfred Gnonto on both wing options, which is really good. They brought in a few players from the Bundesliga in Nemecha, Bornau and Stark, who have all got experience in playing in the big leagues. That's really good additions there. And more than anything, they look really settled in pre-season. They drew to Milan, they drew to Villarreal, and they drew to Man United. And yes, I know it's only pre-season, but I think that's a good sign of what could come here from Leeds. Elland Road can be a dangerous place to go to. If you make it a fortress, you can stay in the league. Will Daniel Farke be the guy to do that? I'm not too sure, but I think the squad can be. Another big news that's come in recently is Dominic Calvert-Lewin could be heading to Leeds. That would be a really good purchase in my opinion. Yes, I know he's been off field recently, but when he's on it, he can be really good. Then you'd have Calvert-Lewin, Nemecha as your striking option with Gnonto and Harrison. That could do enough to stay in the league. Yes, I know it's unlikely. They're probably not the bookies' favourite to stay up. I think Sunderland probably are, but I think they're more settled defensively. I mean, they conceded less expected goals than Burnley last year, and Burnley had the best defence. They demolished the Championship. They conceded less XG than Burnley. Will Daniel Farke stay? I'm not sure, but I think Leeds will stay in the Premier League this year. Now in 16th and 15th, we're staying in London. I've gone for Brentford and Crystal Palace. Now Brentford were really amazing last year under Thomas Frank, but Thomas Frank and his whole staff have gone to Tottenham Hotspur, which has left them really light. And they've replaced him with not the assistant manager, but the set-piece coach in Keith Andrews. So clearly they value set pieces a lot at Brentford, and it looks like they have over the last few years. And he knows the squad well enough, so that could be a good appointment. They have lost, however, Brian Mbeumo, Christian Norgard, Ben Mee. These are all key players for them. But they've still got some players like Kevin Schade. As it stands, Johan Visser still at the club. I think he might leave though. But they've got the new signing, Igor Thiago from last year. People have forgotten, he didn't play a single game last year. This could be the year to see him shine. He could be the Ivan Toney replacement we were waiting for. He's meant to be a big brute up front. Him and Schade with Mikkel Damsgaard could be a good attacking line. But they brought a new goalkeeper in Kevin Keller from Liverpool, and they brought in Jordan Henderson in midfield to replace Norgard. I think that's fine. It's going to be a hard season for Brentford. I think their fans have already accepted that. But in the Premier League, they've been a really good team. They always are tactically set up perfectly to whoever they play against. But this is the first time they're doing this whole project without Thomas Frank. So there's a really, really good chance they get relegated. And I'm very close to putting them probably where Wolves were, but I'm just going to say Brentford stay up this year. But Crystal Palace, however, why have I got them so low? Because they just won the FA Cup and they won the Community Shield against Manchester City and against Liverpool. So they clearly know how to beat the big teams, and they do. I'm not denying that. There's two reasons mainly. Number one, the fact that there seems to be a bit of a curse with the Community Shield. Every year, whoever wins it seems to be slightly worse than what you're expecting them to be, especially with Man City. Whenever they've won the Community Shield, they've not won the league, and Liverpool have won it in the last two times it's happened. With Crystal Palace, I think they will lose Mark Guéhi. I think it's kind of realistic at this point. I think Palace fans accepted that. And I think there's a real chance they lose Eberechi Eze. As it's getting later on, it's more unlikely. But I think Eze to Arsenal will happen in the last weeks of the window. It could happen on deadline day. If you lose Guéhi and Eze, your team looks a lot weaker. Their starting 11 is still very good, do not get me wrong, because you've got Adam Wharton, Mateta, Ismail Assar. These are all game changers for them. And even at the back, Maxence Lacroix, Dean Henderson, they've all done very well. But I'm just a little bit concerned if they could replace their form. And they always start the season really poor, Palace, and they slowly build into it at the end of the season. But they have European Conference League this year. That was a whole debacle with UEFA, which I think they were a little bit hard done by. But it's not necessarily about the quality of teams you're playing in Europe. It's more about the travel, really. Are the players going to be used to travelling to Kazakhstan and then coming back and playing a tough away game at Newcastle? It's going to be really demanding on them. That's why I've got them lower than people probably expect them to finish. I think they're probably the 12th or 11th best team in the league. But I think due to other circumstances, they'll finish 15th this season. Okay, 14th and 13th, two teams that let me down massively in my predictions last season, Everton and West Ham. I thought last year, being their last season at Goodison Park, Everton would really turn it on and finish quite high up. But they let me down massively in the first half of the season. They sacked Sean Dyche, they brought in David Moyes, and David Moyes did very well with this new project of his. But now they're at a new stadium. But when West Ham moved to their new stadium, they really struggled to get results. And more than struggled to get results, they were just easy to play against, really. I think something could happen similar to Everton this year. So people are expecting them to finish top 10, top 11 again. I'm a little bit concerned. You're not going to get the same atmosphere as you did in the old one. Historically, it's happened with Arsenal, Tottenham, West Ham. New stadiums don't necessarily quickly turn into new results. You have to wait a little bit. And I'm going to predict the same thing happen again here. They brought in Jack Grealish, really good signing. They brought in Gianna Barry from Villarreal, who scored a lot of goals last season. And the general Moyes project does look good. They've lost to Corey, very key loss, I think. They've released some other players as well. The defensive unit will always be good for Everton. They always concede very minimal expected goals because Jordan Pickford is really good in the net and their defence stays back a lot. I just don't think their attack is as good as the teams around them. I don't think it's as good as Crystal Palace or West Ham. So David Moyes is building something, but I don't expect them to have as good of a season as everyone else does. But moving on to West Ham, Graham Potter, he did very well with Brighton at his time before he went to Chelsea. Now, West Ham fans seem to be really upset regarding the transfer business they're doing. There hasn't been much happening. Mikel Antonio has been released. Vladimir Sofal has left to Hoffenheim in what was a really good promotion video, by the way, if you haven't checked that out. They've still got Thomas Soucek, they've still got a lot of the defenders, but I think the season is all going to be on two guys, Nicholas Füllkrug and Jared Bowen. They have to score most of their goals. They brought in Callum Wilson as a good rotation option, which is a very good option, I think. The whole drama around Lucas Paqueta's ban seems to be finished, so I think that's fine. I think you'll get a good season out of Paqueta, Bowen and Füllkrug, and I think West Ham will be better than people think. In 12th place, dropping off 5 places from last season, I've gone for Nottingham Forest. Now, Nottingham Forest should have actually finished 14th on expected points, so they weren't actually as good as people thought they were. They were just overperforming everything. Chris Wood was overperforming his goals a lot. I think their goalkeeper, Matt Sells, was outstanding the whole year. The amount of goals he should have conceded that he saved was unbelievable, really. They haven't lost many key players. Elanga's left, yes, but they managed to keep hold of Morgan Gibbs-White, which is huge. And I know Nuno's got experience with managing Wolves in the Europa League and keeping them in the league quite well. But even those years, he didn't really have them as high as he did the previous year. They were more floating around the 9th, 10th mark. I've got them a little bit lower this year with Nottingham Forest, because I also think their depth is a bit lacking, especially in attack. They need to bring in another striker, in my opinion. Chris Wood and Taiwo Wanyu is just not good enough. You need to have someone else, because you cannot rely on Chris Wood to score that many goals again. If he does, I think that'll make a lot of Premier League fans very shocked. But they've still got a lot of key players. Hudson-Odoi would need to step up again. Gibbs-White can go to a new level. It's a very good Nottingham Forest squad, but they're going to have to balance the squad massively, playing in 2 competitions this year. I think that will take a hit on them, and that's why I got them slightly lower down. In 11th place, also dropping down, is Bournemouth. Bournemouth have lost a lot of their defenders. Ilya Zabani, Dean Howson, Milos Kerkesh, and their goalkeeper, Kepa Arrizabalaga, have all left. And it's a completely fresh unit for them this year. They brought some new players in Petrovic, Treffer. I think at centre-back they're going to reinvest to partner Marco Senesi. But people are forgetting their attack is completely untouched. Antoine Semenyo, still there at the club. Justin Kluivert still out of the club. Their strikers, Evan Olsen and Enes Ünal, they were very good last year and they're all still there at Bournemouth. And most of all, their manager, Andoni Iraola, is still there. I think their system is based on their manager, and their manager is a very, very smart guy. Really good tactician, especially against the big teams last year. He knew what he was doing, and I think they'll know what they're doing again, Bournemouth. They just need to find a way to get these new defenders in and learn the system, because they're structure-wise, they should have finished 3rd on expected points last year. They were the 3rd best team after Liverpool and Arsenal. And I've got them 11th. That's quite disrespectful to them. And people have them in 15th, 16th. I think 11th is perfectly fine for where they should finish. Okay, moving on to the top 10 now. In 10th position, I've gone with Brighton. Now, Fabian Hurtela, first season in the Premier League, was very up and down. After the huge loss to Nottingham Forest, loads of Premier League clubs may have sacked their manager, but they kept Hurtela, and that was a really good decision because he ended the season well with wins against Liverpool and against Tottenham, and they looked a really good unit that could always turn up against any team. They have sold some key players in Joao Pedro. It looks like they're going to sell Carlos Baleba as well. But if you look at their squad depth, it's actually really, really impressive. They've got so many players at each position. They've managed to keep Kara Mitoma, which I think is huge. Jorginho Rutter was really good at the end of the season. I think he'll have another big one. And Danny Welbeck, who needs a striker when you got him, because he just seems to score every year you play him in. So apart from Joao Pedro, Estupinian and Adingra, the team's pretty settled. And I think Fabian Hurtela has learned how to use the squad very well. They've been very good in pre-season. They'd be good at pre-season. 10th place for Brighton, I think, is a respectable finish. I think Brighton fans will take it now. Okay, so in 9th position, I've got this team a lot lower than what other people have them. Some people are saying 5th, 4th, 6th. I've gone for Aston Villa. Now, the main reason is the Europa League. Last year, they were in the Champions League, and yes, they competed very well in it. They nearly beat PSG while floating around 6th, 7th in the Premier League, which shows they can do 2 competitions to a high level. But Unai Emery will want to win the Europa League. They've lost some key players in Marcus Rashford and Marco Asensio, and they haven't really replaced them because of PSR issues. First of all, I think they will lose one of Ollie Watkins or Morgan Rogers around January time. But secondly, like I said, he will want to win the Europa League. But Villarreal, when they won the Europa League, they finished 7th in La Liga. And I think 7th in La Liga, 9th in the Premier League, roughly similar. So I think Villa will be around 5th, 6th, 7th the whole season. But near the end of the semi-final stage of the Europa League, they will really prioritise those fixtures, similar to what Man United and Tottenham did this year. And I think they'll win the Europa League, which puts them position down in the Premier League a little bit. And if you ask Villa fans now, would you take 9th and a Europa League win? Lots of them, I think, would say yes. Okay, so now in 8th place, I've got this team a lot lower than other people do as well. It's Newcastle. Now, Eddie Howe's men have had an absolute travesty pre-season. They were not that good. But it does look like Alexander Isak is going to leave or never play for Newcastle again, as he's worded it. He will probably come to Liverpool by the looks of it. They brought in Malik Chur, really good signing from AC Milan. They brought in Elanga from Nottingham Forest and Aaron Ramsdale in goal. So I'm not really sure what the goalkeeper situation is going to be, whether Nick Pope or Ramsdale will be the number one. And their starting 11, don't get me wrong, Newcastle's starting 11 is probably the fourth or fifth best in the Premier League. Their depth is what I'm worried about this year. They've got Champions League again. Last time they were in the Champions League, 2 years ago, they finished 7th in the Premier League. I've got them finishing 8th this year. I think they'll be good. I just think there's too much drama around the club. And maybe I'm overhyping the drama a little bit and they'll be fine because they were one of the best teams last year in the league. They've got a very tough start. They're playing Liverpool and Arsenal early on. And if they lose both of those games, that could easily turn into a bit of a dead start. And slowly you're building up from nothing. And you never know what's going to happen. Okay, so 7th place is the team that let me down massively last season, finishing about 10 places lower than I thought they would, is Tottenham Hotspur. Now, Thomas Frank, I think he's an amazing manager. Him and his staff have gone to Tottenham and they look really good at the Super Cup against PSG. They lost it on penalties. They should have won that game, let's be honest. But I like the squad. They've invested really well. Mohamed Kudus has come in. Joao Palhinha, I think is a really good signing. They've made some loan signings permanent as well, which is really impressive. And I did do a how to fix Tottenham video, so check that out in the description down below if you haven't already. But I think Thomas Frank can get the best out of the attackers. But Tottenham fans, you should really see the season as a developmental season. See this year as, right, okay, what can we do with the squad to develop our guys so that we're challenging in 2 years' time? That's what I would look at it as, because the teams above you have invested well as well, and you just have to consider that, unfortunately. And Thomas Frank, what's he shown us in the Premier League in the past? He could make attacking players have very good numbers. So watch out for Solanke, Brennan Johnson, and especially Matic Tel this year. Because I think he was a bit disappointing last year, Matic Tel. But I think he'll do very well this year. I think they'll start well. There'll be a new season for Thomas Frank. They'll do well in the Champions League, but 7th place for Tottenham. Okay, so in the last few years, there's always been a team that's finished high up that nobody really expected to. Last year, it was Nottingham Forest. The previous year, it was Villa, finishing top 4. And the year before that, it was Newcastle, who finished 4th as well. This year, however, I think the surprise team will be Fulham. They're probably thinking, what is he on about? Fulham have made no signings whatsoever. Yes, they have not. That is part of the reason I think they'll finish high up. Their squad is so settled, unlike the bit of calamity that's going on in Newcastle. Unlike what's happened at Brighton, Bournemouth, and Brentford, with players getting picked off everywhere, Fulham have pretty much kept their whole squad. Anthony Robertson was outstanding last year. Iwobi was really good. Raul Jimenez, Rodrigo Muniz can always pop in with a goal. They've got real game changers in their team at key moments. And more than anything, Marco Silva is a very, very organised manager. The Fulham project has been slowly building over the years. And yes, you'd probably say, wait a minute, they haven't signed anyone. Where's this project going to go? But sometimes settlement's the best thing. And I think you'll see a big season from Smith Rowe, from Andres Pereira again. And I think Fulham are going to surprise everyone. Keep their defensive unit, because they were 3rd on expected goals against last year after Arsenal and Liverpool. Because expected goals against isn't just about who's in your back four. It's about your structure in general. How many players do you have behind the ball and how are they all defending? They finished in a respectable finish last year. I think they'll do even better this year. Marco Silva, it's time to prove yourself, because you are a good manager. Top 6 for Fulham is going to be the surprise finish of this year for me. Okay, so let's get into the Champions League positions now, because I do think England will get 5 positions again. In 5th place, it's really up for grabs between a lot of teams, but I've gone for Manchester United. Now, Man United have let me down every single year I predicted this. They finished 4 places lower a few years ago. I mean, last year they finished about 9 places lower than I predicted them, which is just calamitous. This year, I think they've had one of the best windows, really. And yes, I know you shouldn't put too much hype on a window, but when you brought in Brian Mbeumo, Mateusz Cunha, and Benjamin Šeško up front, I'm really excited. If Šeško was moving by himself with no other attacker, I would say that's career suicide from Šeško, really. There's no need to come here, be the number 9 and ruin your career if you don't perform. But because he's coming in with 2 other Premier League proven forwards, surely it's a bit less pressure on him. I think he can take his time to develop and really learn the trade. And more than anything, I believe in Ruben Amorim. Yes, I know there's not much evidence to believe him on, but at Sporting, his job was really good. Last year, in all the big games, I thought he was very impressive. At Anfield, they set up very well against Liverpool. They beat Man City. He got a draw against Arsenal. He knows what he's doing against the big teams to an extent, and he can set up well. The problem is last year, they kept losing to all the small teams at Old Trafford. That needs to change. They need to change their goalkeeper. Who they bring in, I don't know. Donnarumma looks like he's on the market. Go get him possibly. And prioritise saving shots over feet play or whatever, because he is a good shot stopper. Take him in. And he's a little bit less dramatic than Andre Onana is. And also a huge position for them is midfield. They've got to bring a midfielder in. Baleba is the current talking point. If they do get him in, which I think there's a good chance they will, then I think 5th is more than realistic for them. However, more than the signings, more than anything, the biggest reason I've got them 5th is there's only 1 game per week for them this year. There's no Europe at all. Last few years, Ten Hag had Europe to deal with. This year, no, none of that. It's just you're playing Saturday, Saturday, Saturday. That's it. Ruben Amorim, you can take your time, set your tactics out, work with your team, and get the results you need to. Like I said, fourth place is the current Club World Cup champions, Chelsea. Now, they ended the season really well, and I do think that's something you have to consider here because they could possibly carry that form into the next season. But I'm a little bit concerned about the injury to Levi Colwill. He's done his ACL, which is really not what you need from your best centre-back. Jamie Gittins, Yoel Hato, Liam Delap, Joao Pedro have all come in. Esteval's come in as well, and it looks like they're going to get Xavi Simons. This is a really, really good attacking unit, but sometimes maybe it's just too much. I don't know if they need as many attacks as they're bringing in. Yes, I know there's 5 subs, and yes, I know there's Champions League for them to now to contend with. You're going to need the quality. I think they'll do well in the Champions League. But I feel like Chelsea are just a little bit more beatable than the other 3 teams above them this year. But I also think Enzo Maresca has earned a lot of trust from his fan base. I think the project is slowly working, but I do eventually think they still need to calm down the transfers a bit and let the players just play. When you brought in a few, you need to calm it down there and not bring in any more. I would say right now, if I was Chelsea manager, January, our plan should be don't bring in a single signing. Unless we get a key injury, do not bring in a single signing. We've got the depth to let these guys actually play. Because if you don't, you're not going to get success in the future either. And I know saying that's kind of wrong when they've just won 2 trophies in a row, but I genuinely think that's the case. Because I think Arsenal are building something beautiful, Liverpool are building something good, and City have already evolved their squad as well. So you may be in a bit of trouble if you keep changing. You need to eventually settle, do what Arsenal did, settle, and that will get you the trophies hopefully eventually. But Chelsea, it's going to be a very good season, but I'm gone just short of the title race for me in 4th place. Okay, so the top 3 now. I will confirm, I think any one of these 3 teams can win the Premier League this season. I think it'll be very, very close between last year's top 3, Liverpool, Arsenal and Manchester City. First of all, Liverpool, we've brought in so many players. There's been a lot of change. Unfortunately, Diogo Jota's passing has affected us a lot. Darwin Núñez has left, Luis Diaz has left, Trent Alexander-Arnold has also gone. So it's a lot of key changes to the team that won the league last year. But I think Slot's got his eye on trying to compete in loads of trophies. Because last year, we were pretty poor in the FA Cup, but especially the Champions League in that game against PSG. I think Slot thought, I don't believe in the depth I have here. I don't believe in the likes of Harvey Elliott and these other guys. Can I bring in someone who I want to bring on? And that's what he's done. He's brought in a lot of backup players. And he's tried to prove the depth of the team. Milos Kerkez, Jeremy Frimpong. It looks like we're going to get 2 centre-backs in Leone and in Margehi. And if we do that, we will have one of the best squads of the league. I think that's no denying that. If we get Alexander Isak in, you have Isak, Ekitike, Gakpo, Salah, Chiesa and Ngamoa. That looks really good. And watch out for Ngamoa because I think he'll have a very good year this year. The only question marks I have really is it too much change in one season for us? We did win the league with this squad and it was because it was a settled squad from the previous year. Is there any need for too much change? People will question that. Now with Arsenal, it's Mikel Arteta's 6th season. So the project that he began surely eventually has to end, and they have made some very good signings this season. Zubimendi, Noni Madueke, which got a lot of hate online, but I'm not sure if it was deserved. Victor Gyökeres up front, really going to be an important signing for them. If he could get goals, Arsenal will be a really good contender for the title this year. I really don't understand why so many people are kind of degrading Arsenal, having them 4th, 5th. I don't understand that at all. For me, they are the top 2 best teams in the league this year. They brought some really good depth options in Mosquera and Norgard as well. The big thing for them is their left wing option. People are not sure about Martinelli being the elite quality they need to win the league. Liverpool won the league last year with Cody Gakpo still in development to be the player he wants to be, and Luis Diaz, who's this tricky winger who can get you a goal here and there. Liverpool won the league with basically that centre forward. So Arsenal don't really have an excuse anymore because their squad, I believe, as of now, is the best in the league. They've got the best depth in every position. Liverpool's is probably the best in the league starting 11-wise, but depth-wise, Arsenal's is the best right now. Their defensive depth is unbelievable. Even in goal, they've got Kepa backing up David Raya. It's a really, really good squad. And it's getting to a point where I think Arsenal fans themselves can't really think of any more excuses for Arteta. He kind of has to win something here. Because let's say Liverpool didn't have the window they did. Let's say Liverpool just bought Florian Wirtz, okay, no one else. Then Arsenal fans are probably saying, right, okay, we came 2nd 3 seasons in a row. The project's developed really well. We've got rid of more Deadwood. We brought in loads of players. You got your striker, Arteta. You have to win the league now. And I think Arsenal fans are probably somewhat saying that. But because Liverpool have spent so much, it's kind of taken the pressure off Arteta a little bit to the point where even if he doesn't win the league this year, there's an excuse for him like, oh, how can we compete when other clubs are spending this? There probably shouldn't be anymore. I think Arteta, you need to win something, whether it's the Premier League or the Champions League. There kind of needs to be a trophy that comes to Arsenal this season. And Man City, this is Pep Guardiola's developmental season. He signed so many players in January. He signed so many players this summer. Marmoush, brilliant signing in January. They brought in loads of defenders in January as well. But this summer, they've gone really heavy with Aït-Nouri, Tijani Reinders, Ryan Cherki. It's a really, really exciting squad. It's progressive. But there's 2 players I want to focus on a lot this season, which is Phil Foden and Rodri. Rodri is coming back post-injury. A lot of people are thinking he may get sold A lot of people are thinking that he may be replaced by Tijani Reinders, and he's been so good, and he has been very good pre-season. Man City in general, in the Club World Cup, look to play very good football. So maybe they'll be back to being one of the best teams to watch. Will they get the results? That's more about efficiency. Can they do it? That's the question under Pep. But Pep rarely has two bad seasons. Even when Liverpool won the league last time, they came back and won the league. They started off poorly that year, but they came back and won the league really well post-November, December period. So can he do it again? Maybe, but he's got Arsenal as well this time to contend with, not just Liverpool. So it'll be a tough season, but I think those are your three main contenders. But who's going to win the league? I'm going to say to Mikel Arteta's men, I think they've got the best squad. I think if Liverpool get Isak, Gehi and Leone, then you could say Liverpool have the best squad. But more than anything, Arsenal is the most settled squad in the league. They've sold Jorginho, Thomas Partey, Tomiyasu. But they've kept all their best players. They've brought in new players. They brought in Zubimendi, who I think will change the way they play completely in midfield. You're going to see a better version of Ødegaard and Declan Rice, even better than you've already seen. And I think they are just set to win the league this year. Liverpool, I would have backed us if we hadn't made as much changes as we have. I still think we're up there. I think there'll be barely any points in it. I think Arsenal kind of deserve it as well. They played 3 years when they finished second place. They dropped way too many points at home last season. They're not going to do that this year. Arsenal Football Club are going to be champions in 2026. Okay, so moving on to the awards now. First off, top scorer. Who will win the Golden Boot this year? Last season, it was Mohamed Salah, and he did it very remarkably. But he's going to AFCON this year. So will he get the same number of goals to win the Golden Boot? He has done it before in 21-22 when he left for AFCON, and he still won the Golden Boot. Will he do it again? I'm going to say no. I think this year, Man City's attack will be good. I'm going to say Erling Haaland will win the Golden Boot. There's other players to consider, like Viktor Gyökeres, Benjamin Šeško, Alexander Isak if he goes to Liverpool, and Mohamed Salah. But for me, Erling Haaland, you're going to win the Golden Boot this year. Most assists now. This was also won by Mohamed Salah last year, and he could still win it because he's very good creatively. And he's showing that as he ages a little bit and he's getting a bit slower, that his passing is unbelievable. And I don't think he gets enough credit for it. Someone like Florian Wirtz coming into the Liverpool team with so many attackers around him could really flourish. Martin Ødegaard in this new role with Zubimendi behind him could get more space. But I've gone for Bukayo Saka, mainly because he gets so many assists in open play, but he also takes set pieces really well. And Arsenal are amazing at set pieces. So winning the league, Bukayo Saka with the most assists this season. It's a bit of a negative one now. First sacking. Who will be the first manager to go? In terms of odds, I think Scott Parker's highly ranked, mainly because of how poorly he's done in the past. Daniel Farke's also up there. Nuno, surprisingly, up there after the whole beef he had with Marinakis at the end of last season. Ruben Amorim is also up there expectedly because of the whole Man United drama. I did say it in my prediction, even though I think Leeds are going to stay up, I think they're going to stay up because of somebody else, whether it's Sean Dyche. I mean, everyone would love to see that happen. I think Daniel Farke, Leeds, they said they were going to back him. I think they'll start off poorly. I think Sean Dyche or someone will come in and completely turn it around, and that form is going to keep them up in the league. But at the start, possibly by November, I think Daniel Farke would be the first manager to be sacked. Okay, so best signing now. There's been a lot of transfers this summer. It's been way busier than the previous summer. Liverpool, Arsenal, City, they've all transformed the teams massively. Florian Wirtz for the money. Could he be the best signing of the season? Even Marc Guéhi, being a new defender coming into Liverpool, if he does come in, could be the most influential signing. Zubimendi, I think, will be good. Tijani Reinders will be good. Tottenham have made some good signings. Mohamed Kudus, if his numbers are good, then he could definitely be up here. I'm going to go with Martin Zubimendi of Arsenal. Liverpool wanted him. Real Madrid wanted him. There's a reason all these clubs did. He's very, very tidy in midfield, and he's going to change the way Arsenal play. And if Arsenal win the league, and it's because of him, you've got to give it to Martin Zubimendi. It's the best signing of the season. So player of the season, who will be the best player in the Premier League this year? Mohamed Salah, of course, won it last year. But if I've got Arsenal winning the league, I think it's got to be an Arsenal player. I'm going to go with Bukayo Saka. He always gets goals. I think he'll get the most assists in the league as well. If Arsenal are going to win the league, he will be the best forward probably with Viktor Gyökeres now with the team. Let's see how they link up. It could be interesting at the start, but Bukayo Saka is Arsenal's best player. He's going to win the Premier League Player of the Season for 2026. And finally, for Young Player of the Season, we're going to head across North London. I'm going to go to Tottenham here because I think Thomas Frank is very good at developing young players. I'm actually going to go a bit niche here. I'm going to go with Matis Tel of Tottenham. He wasn't very good last year, but I think Thomas Frank, he'll know how to get the best out of his attackers. Matis Tel's been here. He's a Bayern Munich prodigy. He's coming into the Premier League. This could be completely wrong. I mean, last year I went with Harvey Elliott and then Arne Slot after a very good, promising pre-season. He didn't play a single minute, basically. But there's many options here that could be. Even someone like Milos Kerkez at Liverpool could get this. But I'm going to go niche, Matis Tel to win Young Player of the Season this year in the Premier League. But those are my predictions from 20-1. Fulham finishing 6th, maybe completely wild. Will it be a different dark horse team this year? Maybe Brentford even staying in the top 10 could be a dark horse movement. Who knows? And have I made an absolute blunder with any teams? Let me know in the comments below. Who do you think is going to win the league? Who's going to be the player of the season? Who's going to be the top scorer? All of this stuff. leave it down in the comments below. Follow me on X and on TikTok, where I'll be posting regular videos ahead of the new season. But enjoy the new Premier League season, guys, and I'll catch you guys all later.